It is time for another exhibit speed build in Jurassic World Evolution 2. In this video, I'm building an awesome lagoon and guest section under the name Turtle Rock. We're going to be using the Archelon from the Prehistoric Marine Species Pack and the Amphitheater that Update 7 has made much more usable. It is also the return of a little bit of path art. Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining me for this build. This build took me an hour and 15 minutes in total, but
I'm gonna speed it up for you here
while I talk about the design. And hopefully you'll get lots of building inspiration for your own parks while watching this. And I actually have a growing playlist of exhibit speed builds for different species that you can check out on the channel, and if you like creative building content for Jurassic World Evolution 2, then consider subscribing like the 8.7 thousand people have done in the past month. And here we go, starting our build, starting with laying down the lagoon and the amphitheater, which are like the two main structures of this build, which are just important to get right. So I will admit that I play tested a little bit. I made like a little bit of a test build before starting the recording, just so I knew for sure that I liked how the lagoon and the amphitheater fit together, and if I could fit everything I wanted inside the amphitheater as well, which I will talk about more later. For now, we're gonna move on to something that I haven't done in quite a while, and that is some honest-to-God path art. Well, I mean, let's use the word art loosely here, but like a design within the path. Lately, I've been more abstract and more natural with my my path flair, as I've come to call it. But this is like an actual little bit of an illustration. I will address right away that yes, that is not what the Archelon looks like. Archelon has a much bulkier and much more square silhouette, a much more square shape to the shell. I went with a more cute and I think pretty / elegant design of a turtle for the path art, just because I think it looks a little bit better as part of like this big path thing. No shade to the Archelon. The Archelon is amazing, and because it's so amazing, it is the first creature from the new DLC that I'm even doing a exhibit speed build for. But for path art, I like this shape a little bit better. And you can see that, you know, I mixed up the colors a little bit as well. So I gave the shell a bit of a pattern, and that striped pattern is going to be important for another design element later on in this build. So here I'm just like, you know, figuring out the overall layout of the path. It's going to be quite a big plaza, but, you know, why not? And I'm adding like these bubbles throughout the path to make it feel a little bit more designed, and so that it'll feel less empty when it's done, because obviously it's a lot of surface area that you want to have look interesting. And, you know, the reason that I went with just a big plaza, and honestly such a big exhibit overall, I mean, the lagoon isn't particularly big, but like, you know, the fanfare of the amphitheater and this big plaza and everything around it is because Archelon has a massive rating in the game. So honestly, I feel it's deserved. According to the in-game logic, Archelon is quite the tourist attraction if you add this species to your park. So that's why I felt like it was deserving of just a grand exhibit like this. And I will say that I always include the guest sections in my exhibit speed builds, and the reason for that is because you see it all on the same screen. You know, when you're looking at an exhibit, unless you zoom in, you're always gonna see the surrounding area. So I think that it's just very important that when you make a pretty exhibit, you need to surround it by a pretty guest area as well. But specifically for the lagoon, I'm gonna tell you right now, I didn't decorate the bottom of the lagoon. This build was already an hour and 15 minutes by the time it was done. But that's not even the reason why I didn't decorate the lagoon, and that's because I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it. It's boring. Decorating the lagoons is boring. So no, I did not bother doing that. You can chuck like some coral decorations in there. I spent a lot of time doing that during last Saturday's live stream. I had enough of that. So I actually spent my time decorating something that I like, which is the guest section, something that we actually have tools for. And here I'm just filling in this path design with all of the bubbles. It was a bit of a nightmare, not gonna lie, because I had to be really mindful of clipping issues, but I think overall, in the end, it was worth the effort. It was just, honest to God, it was a pain to fill in. It was a struggle that I would not wish upon my worst enemy. So if you plan on recreating that, this specific design, keep that in mind, that all of the bubbles are kind of annoying to make sure that they remain like the round shape and there's not going to be any clipping with the path colors. I will say again, though, that they are important for filling out the empty space of the plaza. Now, the actual entrances of the amphitheater are kind of underwhelming. You know, the gate isn't actually used, so that's why I use the decorative gates in front of those entrances. Those would be like the front entrances, and here off to the side where I created like this sort of tunnel or alleyway with the wall pieces, those would be like where you exit the amphitheater. I'm dotting plenty of trees around, and of course, as always, we will be adding many decorations as well to make sure that this build is very, very detailed. I really liked adding greenery here to make it come more to life and give it more color. And here we go with some decorations like the fountains that I fit into the bubble designs to sort of, you know, make everything work together well, I think. Added some water in here as well, which is just going to be like a bit of a pond, I suppose. And this is possibly the actual Turtle Rock, or rather this is Rock Turtle. So maybe Turtle Rock is the amphitheater and this is Rock Turtle. I don't know, I had an idea of like making a turtle with rocks, and this is the start of that. So like the big elongated rocks are his front flippers and the other rock is his head. Now at the moment that's all there is to it, but I actually had an idea later on in the build to add to it, so we're gonna get back to Rock Turtle. I think we should call him Dwayne. Okay, Dwayne, it is decided. I walled like around it because I really want this to feel like a separate area within the park. Because, like I said, it is such a big deal. Archelon is a big deal apparently in this universe, so I felt like it deserved like its own dedicated section. But do keep in mind that these builds are always intended as like part of a park overall, you know, as a whole. Now, I'm not actually gonna build the entire park around it, but that is how I envision them, as part of a whole. So there are elements to this design that are all about incorporating it into a park that you can build around it. I do, as always, line the path over there with planters and wall pieces wherever the terrain constraints allow, and that's just to make sure that guests, you know, don't wander off a cliff, you know, as you do. All right, we're back to Dwayne. So I had an idea where I would use like the ground itself as like his body shape. So it's his shell like just breaching the surface of the water. And I think that really helped sell the idea. And then on top of that, I added these rocks with like the same colors, or close to at least, and the same pattern as what we did with the path art earlier, so that it really, like, you know, it creates a mental link in your mind that this is what it's supposed to be. Obviously, we're stretching the imagination here, but I think that if you do have a little bit of imagination, I think you can see the turtle. I'm also gonna add his like hind flippers after this with a different kind of rock, and yeah, I think it does the trick. As sort of like an abstract rock turtle, I was pretty happy with it. I thought it was pretty cute. And sometimes you just get an idea while building and you run with it, and I like it. All right, so we've moved into the interior of the amphitheater, so I can talk about that. Now, there's an entrance building in there, and that is not supposed to be the entrance building of the actual park. It's just a way to get guests in there, because this is where the like entrances to our lagoon viewing domes are. So what we imagine is that guests come into the amphitheater through the doors, through the gates that we place there, and they can exit on the interior. And because that's not actually a function of the amphitheater in game, I had to put the entrance building in there. So that just serves as the way for guests to get in there. Mix up the path again to make it a little bit more visually interesting. We're going with like a bit of a circle theme here, a bubble theme, if you will. Just fixing the path a little bit over there, neatening up a bit to lead to that viewing tower that's gonna have a nice lookout over the lagoon. And some decorations, of course. Just, you know, adding trees, I feel, really helps adding color here. One of the things that I don't really like about the Mediterranean and the Arizona map is just how washed out everything looks. It's all the same color, and the amphitheater as well. Like, it blends really well, but it's all the same color. So that's why, you know, I added in quite a few trees and stuff like that. Planters, of course, planters. They are my second love. I cheat on path with planters sometimes, okay? I'm a human being. I'm an imperfect person. And one of the other important decorative features of this build is, of course, waterfalls. So I included quite a few of those in this build overall. You know, you can see them like flanking the tower, and there was a bison fountain in there, and we're gonna add a couple more in front of the amphitheater as well. So the path wraps around the amphitheater and around the lagoon. Basically, guests enter, like, the main entrance of the section is right in front of the amphitheater, but there's gonna be an entrance / exit back here as well. Again, with that philosophy that it has to connect to the rest of the park that should be built around it. Now here, I had another idea. Because it has become such a huge build, I figured I would add in a tour so people, you know, if you're feeling lazy, you can just hop on the tour and go from the entrance of the area with like the Turtle Plaza, let's call it that, directly to the actual lagoon viewing galleries. And then the tour from this building right here goes out into the rest of the park. So that's why I laid down some random track, again, because you have to imagine that it's part of a greater whole. And this is the secondary entry point, not the main entry point, but this is a way to get into the area if you happen to be on the other side of the park. And again, just making sure that it's walled in, it's its own exclusive, secluded section that I really like doing like that. I like creating themed areas. I went kind of hard with this one. I went kind of hard. I hope you appreciate it. If you do, give the video a like. I had so much fun building this though. It was one of those clear examples of inspiration just happening and continuing to happen. Like, I got so many new ideas as I was building, you know, with Dwayne, with adding the tour, and with other like details sprinkled throughout that I don't even have time to like address. But I hope that, you know, seeing it all happen is getting like the point across that, yeah, I was just really inspired throughout this entire build. I had a good time with it. I think there's like several fun things in here that you can incorporate in your own builds, or maybe you want to recreate this. That will also be cool. And yeah, I just really hope that you enjoy watching this process and that it does give you ideas for your own builds, because that's the purpose of the channel, right? That is like my contribution to society. It's the only thing I contribute, so I better make sure that it counts. So I hope it does. I really hope it does. And I just hope it comes across that I still just get so excited about this game. And I have, of course, many, many more ideas for future exhibit speed builds. We will be continuing this series. And if you have like a specific species that you would love for me to do a build for, you are free to comment those down below. You know, you might throw a species at me that suddenly unlocks an idea within my crazy path brain. And yeah, then we can get going on the next one. But I do recommend that you check out the playlist as well with all of the exhibit speed builds. I will link it at the end of this one, because we already have quite a few done. And it must be said that, you know, even though this is a build for Archelon, obviously you can apply the ideas within this build for any species that you would want, right? You can adjust this design to suit whatever species you want to build a habitat for. And the same goes for all of the exhibit speed builds in the playlist. You know, just because I made my own custom T-Rex kingdom doesn't mean that you can't substitute it with an Allosaurus or an Edmontosaurus. Whatever you want, you are in charge here. So as like the series of exhibit speed builds continues to expand, I think that it's gonna give quite a lot of building inspiration for even for species that I haven't done a build for yet. Now, we are nearing the end of the build. I'm adding a lot of these planters just because they were like my favorite planter for this type of look. You know, they had the most greenery in them that still felt appropriate for the biome. And I'm like filling in these empty spots with some rocks and some individually placeable foliage so it wouldn't feel like too empty. It did really make me think, because like I was tempted to put like a Spinoskeleton or a T-Rex skeleton. I was really tempted to do that, but it just didn't fit. So as I was like finishing up with the details, I did really think that it would be cool slash, well, maybe necessary is too big of a word, but you know what, let's go with it. It would be cool slash necessary to have more statues in the game. I think that would be so helpful, and there is a mod for that. I know there's a mod for stuff, but it's not the same. It's not the same, because not everyone can use mods. So I think it would be really cool if Frontier has a habit of doing things that mods have already done. So I think it would be cool if they took some inspiration from that as well and gave us more statues to play with in the vanilla game. Because I still play vanilla, as do most people who play Jurassic World Evolution 2. We don't need to watch me airlift about 24 Archelon into the lagoon, so let's just start our little showcase at the end of the video here to show the end result of what was created with like the guests right here inside the amphitheater heading towards the viewing tower that overlooks the lagoon, and whoosh, we are inside, we're looking down, we will be able to see the turtles just resting on the rocks. Our guests can also go into the viewing gallery and see the beautiful lagoon before them with the amphitheater in the background, but as they go down, they can look underwater and see the Archelon gliding around gracefully among the rock pillars. And speaking of rocks, of course, we will be visiting Dwayne later on as well. Personally, I think this is a pretty cool and different use of the amphitheater to get guests in there and just use it as like a big statement building ahead of your attraction, ahead of your exhibit. So I really liked how that turned out. I also really liked the little, or actually quite large, Archelon path design in front of it, you know, in the absence of species-specific signs and statues. I thought that was pretty fun. And of course, Dwayne just chilling there. I'm getting attached to Dwayne, not gonna lie. Give a like for Dwayne, subscribe for Dwayne. But here is the overview, the end result. I want to thank you so much for joining me for this speed build. In all seriousness, if it did give you ideas, consider checking out more content on the channel and subscribing if you like what you see there. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.